Uploaded Fury, Part 2, Nadine's Story. Chapter 4. Locking her father out. This is about the main character, Ellen. Scene 1, Sky Apartment, Memory Sequence. An apartment structured like a tiny house. The glow of the neon sky gave the glass scattered reflections. Inside, Nadine, at 13, is sitting with her mother at the couch. Nadine, why do I need a babysitter? I'm 13. I know that, but you always matured slower than other boys. I'm a girl, for one thing. You know your uncle will never consider you female. Cut 2. Nadine is taking a screwdriver to adjust the tightness of her robotic arms and legs. Nadine, I'm a grown 13-year-old. I can feel it in my limbs. Scene 2, under city apartment flat, present. A run-down apartment. Ellen is locked inside the basement, trying to keep her alcoholic father outside. Her father is banging on the door. Ellen, let me in. I need to talk to you. It's about your grades. Ellen, not feeling like breaking away from her favorite message board. I know exactly what will happen if I do as well, so let's cut to the chase. What do you want? Scene 3, Undercity Neighborhood. Ellen is exiting her apartment through the basement window she cracked open. On her she carries the clothes that she could carry and her toiletries. Also a thumb drive with images she found online. She reaches a dark alleyway and she recognizes the silhouette of the figure of her boy her age. Ellen, what are you doing around here, Slufner? Slufner, I'm just dropping by. Why are you out so late? Ellen, what's it to you? Slufner, seeing the bruise that was on her legs. Oh, I see. Want to come over to my place? A war dog, a remnant of an old military robot canine from the two civil wars, attempts to attack them. The figure is rusty and in need of repairs. Slufner shoots a shotgun at it. Slufner, besides, it's dangerous out here so late. Uploaded Fury, Part 2, Nadine's Story. Chapter 5, Mean Streets of the Alley Cat. Ever since he got home from work, her father only watched television. It was old reruns of classical Western sitcoms, which made Ellen wanted to vomit. But it was better than actually being a cowboy with all their chauvinistic values. With all the girls being rescued from the hangman's noose, she herself had largely given up watching the set, and had largely tuned herself out from the larger world. It was not just the educational channels that gave her a headache, but also the cartoon channels. Part of her still wanted to reclaim the lost joy of flickering lights. When she had went to the arcade, she had met Slufter for the first time. It was one of the few occasions she didn't mind little Indians and cowboys shooting at each other to death. Ellen, I'm trying to talk to you, her father said, slamming the door, even though in reality he had just gotten up. He forgot that he had locked her in the basement. He took the key from where he hid it, then opened the door. It wasn't the same tone from when he had last spanked her, but it wasn't any more of a relief. Just the sound of his voice made her want to smash his head open with a lead pipe. I can explain about, Ellen began to say. Forget about the excuses, her father said. It had been like this since she turned 15 and showed no obvious signs of slowing down. She did what any girl in that situation would do. She got herself a lead pipe. After the ordeal, she placed She packed her bags with blood on her face. She unpacked a bottle of mace and put it in her purse. In her backpack, she carried a small laptop. She also got herself a change of clothes and toiletries. She had never been homeless before, but now she didn't have the choice. After she climbed out the window, having locked herself inside, she saw the silhouette of another man, who seemed to shapeshift from that of a human-sized tarantula, and she was unsure whether it was real or a product of the trickling of city lights. Slufner's silhouette revealed itself, who held a Luger. He shot the spider several times to make absolutely sure it was dead. "Oh, Ellen, is that you? Why the blood on the face? It's a long story." Upload Fairy Part 2 Nadine's Story Chapter 5 Keyboards and Broken Glass. There was an old saying that mentioned it wasn't the fall that kills you, but the sudden stop. But generally, this was a statement made for people who have not fallen into the outermost edges of darkness. The fall was not the worst of it. Her body, a mess of punctured limbs. When you're missing a right arm, it's easy to think that maybe eventually you'll stop using this particular limb. But for Nadine, she had come to realize that one's dominance was not based on your strongest hand, but the side of your brain. When she slid her fingers across the tablet, it felt the same as always, albeit without as much feeling. She liked to shop for parts on the open web on the off chance that she could find parts to rebuild her robot dog. She found spark plug in a garbage dump just down the road from Purgatory. It was merely a skeleton of its former metallic rat dog self. She could barely make it through to find the robot due to the light not always reaching this district. A few months ago she was in the hospital. She could remember the sound of being dragged on a metallic table to see the good doctor, inquiring with her best friend why in the world it was she who survived. If you wonder why she was able to remember it, consider the fact that she can remember most things while still drunk. Her left arm was a broken chunk, one that could barely make a slam dunk or any other aspect of athletic fulfillment in the floating city. Do you think she's going to make it a voice act? We'll have to see. She's punctured all over, the doc said. Yet now she looked to the stars, onward into the aristocratic utopian mess she once lived, which made her realize, being down here, how good she had it. And yet, while she didn't completely trust her new friends, she wouldn't trade them for the world. She lived in her own darkness. When Nadine woke up, she found Blanky leaning her head on her shoulders. Nadine could sense her faint outline as she grasped for air. "Here, have this headache powder. It can help the pain a little bit," she offered. Nadine grabbed it without hesitation, and then almost fell asleep. "Please stay awake, it sure gets lonely here." "And who is this pretty face?" Nadine asked. This was how she met Blanky, one of her first crushes, but they never got close enough to reveal themselves to each other. Before she was National Razor crossbowed by militarized police. A Spanish girl raised by Italian parents, though due to a month having run away from home, her accent of a Corsican was barely noticeable. Borrowing more from the urban culture of the southernmost parts of Chattanooga, Nadine didn't know much about Blanky's past other than this. Just that whenever she discussed rats with her, Blanky would always ask her to stop. But Nadine always wanted a pet rat, not a rat dog. It was just a few months ago when Nadine had run away from the boarding school. Though she was a runaway, much like others, there were some parts of her that always wanted to go back to the place where she once belonged. The others had gotten used to eating roaches, if they could even find that. The secondary American Civil War had largely been kind to her family, an aristocratic family who worked closely with the multiple CEOs of the potato district. Even now she still dreams of rolling soccer balls rolling away from her, always being just out of reach, and in front of her always some faint glimmer of reality television and dancing shows. The motion set that covered the city was called the Meadow of Gold. She called it simply shut. But it was the kind of shut that, despite the most miserable aspect of her existence, made her hold on just a little bit longer, like some abstract idea that they will someday become rich and famous. Score a dark comedy sketch on a comedy television set. She preferred the darkness of her own bedroom, the glow of LED lights, the flow of French chanson singers singing her songs of goodnight butterflies, dead men's lullabies. Yet in this world, below that distant prairie, while some fairy and elf always played dangerous games, she found herself representing the image of such falseness. She was a Satanist at heart and wanted to expose the lies for what they were. For her, she knew that in reality, even her own life was rather austere. It was never something she mentioned widely to her friends, whom were taught by abstractly non-human pixel machines. The best you were going to get was some left libertarian conversation by Noam Chomsky and Charles Johnson, but never in a personal conversation. But for her, reality was no political novel. It was a game of chase, nightmares, total monstrosities. She thought she was going to die from lack of sleep. When she had met Brittany, it was a time when she was much more easygoing. They had known each other for months, but stopped seeing each other when she used to play school. Much of Nadine's identity had not yet been formed. She had not yet switched to public school where she would hang out with school friends to play pool. Yet now, as the years went by, she simply asked herself why. Sometimes people separate on bad terms, yet when you're young, there is nobody else's terms besides the terms of your parents. Nadine and Brittany were politically the opposite, as she would later find out secondhand. She was the right hand and Nadine was the left hand. It makes Nadine wonder who she voted for in the last election, not that it mattered now since the war. While Nadine ate spicy food and wiped the sweat off her brow, she still regretted no marriage vows, her desires fading like the wind from some other lover's memory. In high school, she generally avoided other women, partially due to her own feelings of inferiority, but also her unwillingness to subject herself to the darkness of her own lust. At the time, she had multiple issues related to hating other girls who were more delightful than herself. Yet the hacker instinct ran wildly, life like an electronic keyboard with various previously recorded music notes, with songs from various decades. Childhood memories were one of those things one tries to push toward the past, but she kept wondering what Brittany would think of her now. Even within her own family, she was largely the opposite of almost everyone she knew. Consider the fact that she had been watching a weird mixture of Alex Jones and Noam Chomsky, with the old Green Party winning out in the long run. She found various conservative talking heads truly alien, in a way more bizarre than any exotic science fiction short stories. To think her and Brittany became so different, like life fracturing into broken glass.